I knew in my mind, when you run out of money, you go to Fort Lauderdale and you go and ask for day work. So he bought me a plane ticket and he gave me $1,000 cash. And he's like, are you coming back? And I'm like, not sure yet.
We have to practice for the worst case.
Because it's not like there's a fire. Oh, let me see on TikTok if I can find a drill. How do you get that generation to actually grasp it?
I've been living on a beach in the Turks and Caicos for the last 6 weeks, drinking rum, eating shellfish that I've been fishing off the reef.
Good morning, or good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world or wherever you're watching this next episode of Chronicles. I don't know if we can see all the way in the back, but out there in the bay in the Antigua Yacht Show is Black Pearl. And CT has been kind enough to tender out, to meet us at the villa, to have a chat about your career, about safety, about training and all those kind of things. Thank you so much, CT, for being here.
Absolute pleasure. Happy to come out. Happy to find the time to get out, actually. It's been a pretty busy show.
I can imagine. I mean, at A-Crew we have got a big history with Black Pearl because, as you guys know, we do a lot of things with Montenegro, and Black Pearl was there for years. So we developed quite a close relationship with you guys, like especially the times that you didn't go out. So every time we popped over to do stuff, they were so excited of something happening in Montenegro, right? So everybody would...
The summer games, the winter games.
Everything, all those kind of things. Crew awards, we did it all there. Next to you, Steve, the Gama Maritime, but also Superyacht Training Group. Thank you for sponsoring that episode, and not only that, thank you for bringing CT out because you made this happen.
That's what we're here for. Pleasure to be here as well.
Yeah, cool. Let's get into conversations, CT. What we've learned is that people want to know stories. We have a lot of businesses, but a lot of crew listening to this podcast, and people are always very interested in how people get to become a captain of a vessel like Black Pearl, because she's a legendary vessel in this case. So what was your route?
This story can take 2 minutes, 10 minutes, or...
No, take the 10-minute one. Yeah. I really want to know the story. It's a podcast. People will listen to it.
I'll give you a quick into yachts first. Yeah. So as a kid, I grew up around the water. I grew up in Southeast Asia. And we spent a lot of time on boats. My father worked in the maritime industry, and we grew up with stories about how he'd been an oil surveyor through Indonesia and Australia as a young man. So it was always about the water, stories about the water. They were the best times. And when we were kids, we'd go on holiday into Malaysia and Thailand, back when there was nobody there, and we'd just be on boats and around the beaches. I moved to Australia as a teenager, and when I was sort of 13, 14, a friend of mine, his dad had a 40-foot yacht, and he used to take us sailing, and by the time we got to 14, he gave us the keys and went, you guys are okay, just don't crash it when you put it back into the berth and make sure you wash it. And so we spent the next few years sailing that boat on the east coast of Australia, and he was a very good friend of mine. And when I finished school, I went on the Australian sail training ship, the Young Endeavour, which is run by the Navy. But I was always going to go to university. I was always going to go and do something different because, that's what you're supposed to do. You're going to go and study. But I took a gap year, I'm still on my gap year.
So you basically decided you thought you were going to university, and it never happened.
Yeah. So what happened in my gap year, I went travelling, I got back to Australia, and I had 6 months before university started, and my friend who I'd sailed as a kid on the coast with gave me a call. He was like, what are you doing? And I was sleeping on my brother's couch, fighting with his wife. And he goes, I've got a job for you. He goes, we got this square rig sail training ship, and we're going to do 10 days, and we're going to sail up and down the continental shelf in Australia throwing hydrophones in the water to listen to whales. So we're not going to pay you anything, but we will feed you and we'll give you beer. So I was like, yeah, perfect. So I went on there for 10 days and I finished on there after about 6 months. And after 6 months, I had my STCW. I'd done the basic training. I finished on there, and then I went to another square rig ship. And, that led me to here through a fairly convoluted pathway. But that's how I got into boats.
Okay, because that was very quick. From being on a sailing ship to being the captain for Black Pearl, there is a story in between.
Oh, no, okay.
That it went a bit too fast.
No.
It's not like they called you up after being 10 months and throwing out hydrophones to whales and say do you want to be captain of Black Pearl?
Yeah.
That didn't happen.
Well, so I went on to another square rig ship where I worked with a really great traditional rigger. and I basically did an apprenticeship in traditional rigging, building rigs out of manila fibre, tar, oakum, making sails. So we made square rig sails by hand. We put bolt ropes on them, and I ended up on a boat called the Endeavour Replica, which was a replica of Captain Cook's ship. I went on there as a upper yardsman, so whenever they set sails, I'd go up and work in the rigs. I worked in there as a rigger as well, and eventually I transitioned on that boat into a sail training watchkeeper. So I would get given 13 people who'd never been on a ship before, and I'd have to teach them about climbing aloft, clipping in, unfurling sails, furling sails, navigation, and all of those things. We would teach those people how to sail.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was an amazing job. Amazing job. Again, no money. We didn't make any money. No one ever got paid.
So it's basically a lot of your story is just love for the sea, right?
Absolutely love. I love the sea. I didn't make any money for at least the first 5 years of my career, but I did a lot of amazing things. Yeah. So we circumnavigated Australia on the Endeavour, and what we would do is we'd go into a port, we'd set the boat up as an 18th century museum, we'd bring the locals in to raise money for the charity would fund the boat, and then when we packed up, we would bring 50-odd trainees on board for a cruise of up to a week to 6 weeks, and then we'd go sailing with them. We'd teach them how to climb aloft, and you'd have so many people, why did you come on board? I want to get over my fear of heights. I want to get over my fear of the ocean. I want to and so you'd work with this group of people, and you'd teach them, and you'd see them develop this passion for the sea, and after a week, they're all square rig sailors. They love it. Wow. Very, very rewarding time, amazing. But I got to work with all these different people and learn how to make them. How do I get someone who's terrified of heights to the top of a mast?
What age were you at that time?
I turned 21 on that boat.
Okay.
And by that stage, I had already been to school, and so I had my STCW. I got my coxswain's certificate after that, which is the Australian system. And I think then I went and got my Master 5, which is like the lowest level captain's ticket. So I worked on there, and so taught and worked on sail training. When I stepped off there, I sort of twiddled my thumbs for a little while, going, what am I going to do now? And I still wasn't convinced that my life was going to be, I didn't know I was going to go be a captain, and I didn't know my life was going to be at sea. I was still looking at
you still thought you were going to uni, right?
No,
that was past.
I think, the thing that cured me of uni, I worked in I'll tell you.
Oh yeah, come on.
I worked in a phone. I worked in a phone centre when I was finishing high school. So
one of those call centres.
Yeah, call centre.
Yeah.
When I was finishing high school, so I'd go in at 5 o'clock. And I'd get on the phone until 10 p.m. Now I'm like a 16-year-old, and I'm surrounded by these people who are at uni and who have finished uni. And I'm going, why are you working here when you've finished uni? And they're like, I did this degree, but I don't want to use it because I hate marketing, or I never want to be an architect. I don't want to do that. So I was surrounded by all these, and they're like, what are you doing at uni? I'm like, this and that. I'm at school. So when I finished school, that's why I took a gap year. I was like, I don't know what I want to, I don't know if I really want to do that. So I'm not going to start now. I'm going to go and do some things. So I was never super convinced that was the way forward.
No, I mean, it's interesting because in those days, it was unheard of, right? You would go the classical path, right? High school, uni, whatever.
Well, my father, right, I was going to uni.
Yeah, exactly.
You will go to uni. And okay, now we're going to jump in time. My dad never approved of going to sea until the day on the first sail trial of Maltese Falcon. I flew him to Turkey with his wife. And I invited him on board the boat for the first sail trial. Tom Perkins, the boss, was kind enough to allow me to do that. Chris Gartner, who's my co-captain now, was kind enough to allow me to do that. So I brought my dad on for the first ever sail trial on Maltese Falcon. And I said, look, I can't talk to you today because I'm going to be pretty busy. This is the owner. You can have a chat with him. Someone will bring you a cup, water, whatever. He came in Turkey. We got on the boat and we went sailing for the first time. And we put full sail up and we went out of the Bay of Tuzla. We sailed at 15 knots, and because I did the rigs and sailing systems for that project, I was up the rigs, we were setting sails, doing remotes, and people were talking to me, and he was like, oh, there's some people respect you here. And people were talking to him, and at the end of the day, I took him to dinner, and he sat down, he looked at me, and he goes, it's okay, you've done it right.
Really? That's such a good story. That is such a good story.
10 years.
Because nowadays, and that's where I was going to go to, like my own son told me, I'm not going to uni. I said, why not? It's like, well, hey, Dad, like I want to do my own thing. And he's doing it really well because like uni's for some people, but like especially, and I'll come to like teaching nowadays is for this generation. There's a lot of like, and I think Steve will have an opinion on that. There's like, how do you teach these generations, because it's a completely different ball game, right? Like, 'cause we're talking uni stuff, and you do training. So, do you notice, like, because you have a military background?
I do, but actually, just to follow up on this part of it, from my side, I'm not going to be your father, because actually my side of it is my son never wanted to go to university, but he is now in this industry. But he's got his commercial officer the watch ticket, and he's seen all the benefits of what that brings. But he did time on the yachts beforehand as well, on the deck side of it, so he knows what the path is ahead. But he's got the advantage of my background to know that, of course, we're pushing him down on that safety training side.
Well, the advantage of your background that you help him get jobs, so that you actually...
It can work both ways. We've pointed him in the right direction, so we say. You know, we've made sure he's going.
Hey, someone can get you an introduction, but once you step on board the boat, they can't do the job for you.
No, I know. I got my son. Funny, like he did a week on Slipstream. We met the captain's a good friend, and someone was like, "Do I want to get into yachting or not?" And he said, "Like, come on Slipstream for a few days. Just enjoy yourself." Son came back and said, "It's not for me, Dad. It's not for me. I'll go do something else." Because you need to be a certain character, right, to be on boats.
Yeah, you do, and I'll let Christian go into that depth of it, because obviously with his knowledge, I mean, it's going to have been built up, and obviously with the background of what he's done, it's all that professional side. It's, you touched on, yes, I come from the military side of it, which can be seen in this industry as a bit of a, by some people, no thanks, we don't want you, but actually try to look at what the background of most military personnel are, in that they've gone through intense training. And from our side of it, yeah, if it's firefighting or navigation, but particularly on the firefighting, they're doing the drills every day on board the ships, because we have to practice for the worst case, all the reversionary methods, etc. So if you're going to do it through that, or you're going to do it on the commercial side, you've got the good standards. There are some very good people within the yachting side of it, and I think from what we've picked up from Christian and even chatting before this, there's definitely that side of where you can see an enhanced training pipeline. And that's got to be an advantage to anybody who wants to come into this, not to meet just the minimum standard, but to go above and beyond.
I know, but like, and we'll get to that. Like, I understand what you're trying to say, and I think especially in these situations like fire training, you're hoping it never happens. So that's why you have drills, because like it's hopefully it happens like, well, hopefully never in your life on your boat you'll have a fire. But that's it. Yeah. So how do you get a generation that is used to getting fast information? Because it's not like there's a fire, oh, let me see on TikTok if I can find a drill, right? It's like, how do you get that generation to actually grasp it?
Well, I'm only going to answer it from the ashore side, and then I think this perfect question for Christian to answer from the on-board. For us, it's just education. It's just, you've got to go through your basic STCW anyway. So anybody who wants to come into this hopefully has got that mindset. And I've seen it change over the 15 years that I've been in the industry of, it's not the backpackers 1 year so much. It is becoming more professional. So they understand that there is a career path. There will still be some who are quite happily being at a junior level. They want to just enjoy the fun parts of it and not get to the dizzy heights of where, for us to get Christian to attend to this has been a fight in his diary, because he's been maxed out for the entire duration of the show and has pulled in a million directions. So there's education, and the education is part of the training, and it's ongoing. And it doesn't matter if you're doing it from the ashore side of it. Once you get on board, it's a mindset, and it's having that mindset to understand, I want to improve. So you're not necessarily going to find everything online. It's all the practical side. That's how we'd see it from ashore, and what we want to bring on board. I get that,
like, and thank you for saying that, because we noticed, like, obviously within a crew, we've been dealing with crew from these like personal and professional development perspectives for a long time. We see a massive shift, right? And we're very grateful, because there's more and more career-focused crew. We even noticed that people drink less since COVID, and because we did these little, we do these little events, and there's always a bit of a fun element. We do notice that people are much more aware of their health, their well-being, and hopefully therefore also of their career. Do you see any shifts, CT, on like in the past few years or not?
Yeah, well, I was going to comment on that. I've seen a shift as well where some crew, they don't even want to go out for a drink. They're like, I don't drink.
That was unheard of 10 years ago. Right? If you didn't drink, why would you be in yachting?
Yeah, exactly. But I definitely see that. I definitely see a shift. I think I want to segue back into. Well, I can talk about that point, but I want to segue.
No, segue back first.
I was just going to talk about, how do you get crew to engage with training?
Exactly.
And the answer to that is imagination, right? You have to get people to imagine what the worst case scenario is, and then you have to break through the cool. I'm too cool to not be good at something, because I find that, and I will probably offend some people by saying this, I find that a lot of people who are of a younger generation, and not all, and this is not a fault thing.
It's also, you're not generalizing, you're just giving an example.
An example is a lot of people have been, parenting's changed, right? From when I was brought up, parenting has changed, and that's a good thing. It is, because people care a lot more about their kids, but things go up and they go down, and a lot of children have never been told that anything they do is bad. A lot of children have never been told that they can't do something. You can do anything you want, and you're going to be great at everything you do. And the backside of that is, if you're not good at what you're doing, it can't be worth doing. If I'm not good at this, it can't be worth doing, because I can be good at everything that I do. And I break that down, like on board, I try to break that down and go, no one knows this, right? And as a junior, you're not expected to know this. So you don't have to perform. What you have to do is learn. So now's the time. Ask as many questions as you want. There are no wrong questions, because now you have to learn this. You don't know it, you have to learn it. But you're not going to be an expert when you start, and so we're going to drill it. And we're going to drill it from this direction, and we're going to drill it from this direction, and we're going to make you think about it from this direction. We're not just going to put you in this scenario and repeat it once a month for 12 months, so you know exactly what you're doing. We're going to mix it up. And I want you to think about it from a different point of view.
It's almost like gamification, if you look at it.
Exactly. Yeah, it is. You look at it and go, right, for today. So we did a fire drill the other day. Now, a stock standard, I don't know a stock standard fire drill, because we always do them our way. Yeah. But a stock standard fire drill, okay, there's a fire alarm, there's the fire, take the hose out, unroll the hose out, put on the BA gear, put out the fire. We didn't put out the fire, get in the life raft, abandon ship. Drill's done, tick it off.
Is that correct, Steve? Just checking?
It's going to be a stock to a lot of boats.
Yeah.
It's not what I would be happy with.
No, okay, that's not what I'm saying.
Exactly.
No, I'm just checking in with Steve. No, continue. Sorry, continue.
But, like the other day, we did a fire drill. In our fire drill, we sat down in teams of 3, and we gave everyone a space in the boat. We said, right, this is your space. There is a fire in this space. What are the 6 compartments? What are the 6 boundaries of this space? Yep. You're not allowed to look at it. You're not allowed to look at any material. Just sit down. What are the 6 boundaries of this space? No, right. And people go, oh, okay, there's the, and they had 10 minutes to figure this out. Where is the nearest hydrant? Yep. How would you run a hose to this space so that a fire team could then access that? What is the containment? What is your access from outside to there without compromising other compartments? And how are you going to evacuate smoke from that area once we've contained the fire, if we contain the fire? Which fixed firefighting systems are active in there? Where do you activate them from? And the team sat down. They had 10 minutes. Then we gave them the fire plan. You say, now, here's the fire plan. Don't rub out what you wrote, but now with the fire plan, see if you change anything. And they wrote down the changes. And then one of those group members stands up and presents that to the rest of the crew. This was my space. These are the entries that I had. This is what changed when I had the fire plan. Yeah, it was really funny, because I always thought that this was above this, but actually it's not. It's this other thing. The owner's bathroom's above this. So the boundary coolers, because when someone's going to boundary cool, they don't get it. They're not sitting there with the fire plan going, I'm going to go here. They're running around the boat. So we did this drill, and the feedback at the end, at the end of all of our drills, we open the group. I start. Everyone else in the group has an opportunity to talk about their experience, and I close. Okay, and we talk about it. It takes longer than people want. People are going, I got jobs to do, but we debrief, and we get our lessons learnt. We incorporate them into our next drill. But the feedback from that drill, which we haven't done probably for a year, like we do other ones, was, oh, that was so good, because I really had to think about this from a different point of view. It wasn't just run out there and put on this gear and do that, or set up the first aid kit. It was different. What we did was we ignited the imagination. Yeah.
I love that. I mean, this is so good. I mean, obviously, I know fuck all about fire drills. That's why I can be hosting these kind of things. I just have to ask the questions. Yeah. But what I like is that you're trying to challenge people, right? And by challenging them and putting them in groups and making them think and consider, they'll never forget.
But you know what else I'm trying to do? If there's a fire, which I've had on board boats, I've been at sea 27 years, I've had multiple fires on boats, and we've had good teams who have responded well, and those fires have been extinguished with no loss of life. no damage, well, no significant damage to equipment, and no interruption in the ability for the boat to function. But if we didn't have people who are trained and understand the boat, it may not have gone that way. So my imagination is fully kicked in on what happens when there is a fire on board the boat.
Because you've experienced it.
Yeah, and it's very scary.
I can imagine. I mean, can you believe I'm out in open sea having a fire on board? I mean, there's like...
Yeah, exactly.
You just don't jump off. Like that kills you as well. You know what I mean?
There's no jumping off.
There's no jumping off.
Yeah.
No, I mean, and I think it's this thing you need to be aware of, and I think, Steve, that's probably the most difficult thing in what you do, is trying to convince people to do things with you, whilst there's not like this instant necessity, right? If you need uniform. If there's no more clothing, you just order uniforms, right? People need to wear a uniform. But does everybody feel that they need to do this, Steve?
Thankfully, there are the really good boats, and I'm sitting here getting. No, I won't say that, because even though you're going to edit it out, you're going to have to stop that bit. Right. I'll sit here saying that, that's the classic. That's brilliant to hear the imagination and to understand and recognize as well that it's more the fact that that's a drill, that is training. Which a lot of boats won't consider. They'll simply go with what is that stock answer of, right, fire alarm, send the team down there, rig the hose, send a re-entry, put the fire out, crack on, and it took all of 5 minutes. If we're lucky, we'll do a debrief. It's just so wrong. It needs the industry to wake up and realize that imagination.
Can I add something?
Yeah.
I agree. The thing is, without... a lot of boats have no time. And that's fair enough. There is so much commercial pressure, and so if it's not mandated, people do what's mandated. My management company says I have to do these things. Yeah. I've got to get it done. I've got a tick list of a bunch of things, and I'm picking up guests in 3 days, and then I'm doing back-to-backs and back-to-backs. So I think people do the best they can, mostly, with what they have.
Of course they do.
But we need to improve
It's a mindset.
What tools are available?
Yeah.
Well, you said it earlier. You said like what we're doing is, there's a minimum requirement. That's what you need to reach. Is what when we spoke before. And now the question you have to ask yourself: do I want to go above and beyond? Am I happy with just being at minimum requirements, or do I want to take that extra step? Right?
But it's, as Christian's pointed out, it's that mindset of just thinking about, we are limited on time, and I get that. We hear that an awful lot for all the boats that we go training with. We're limited on the time. It's just endlessly go, 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 go. And there are some boats we're never going to get to. That's fine. We get it. All we want to do is just change that understanding of the fact that you can do more even as a team. Even though this drill that they've run on board will have taken longer than just that quick, let's get everyone dressed, go down, put it out, and crack on with work. Look at how much more has been learned by the entire crew. Because it's also got to be a case of, think of that worst case scenario, that actually not everybody will turn up to their station for the muster.
Well, that's a really great point.
There are going to be, what happens if middle of the night, because fires don't always happen at the nicest time of the day in the calmest conditions of the nicest flat seas. It's probably going to be the middle of the night. It's probably going to be a little bit movement. And what happens when the captain comes out of his cabin, was asleep soundly moments previously, trips, stumbles, falls, cracks head, and is now the casualty. The chief officer, who most of the time, not on every yacht, is going to be the on-scene commander, has now got to step up to that position. So when was the last time we practiced all of that? When was the last time we said that actually the BA controller hasn't turned up because they are the casualty? There's a lot more that goes to it of just growing forward and understanding what other roles that people can fill.
You've got to do asymmetric drills. So you remove people from the drill. So, for example, if we're now super specific into fire drills.
Yeah, because I think if they're using the fire drills to look at basically it's a good example how to manage a crew and how to manage a vessel, right?
Well, we do. You can talk about this. This is a conversation of ours. But we do mini drills as well. So when we get new crew members on, obviously, now if you're going to be in this position, we do a mini drill. Your mini drill is BA board, right? We're going to go through that. We have that conversation. They get trained. So there's always multiple people who can do the BA board. Yeah. Or we do mini drills in fire dressing. Let's go take all the dressers and all the people who are on fire teams, and let's get them all to do a mini drill. And they'll go for an hour, and they'll put the gear on, they'll take the gear off. They'll put the gear on, they'll take the gear off. When we've changed the way response works, because now we have a response when the boat is on anchor or when the boat is tied to the dock. We have a different response, obviously, to when the whole crew is on board.
Yeah.
Because you're going to be missing 4 people, and one of them could be me, or one of them could be, the on-scene commander. So the muster is now different, and you look at the resources you have to respond. But when our fire teams come up, it's not team A is not crew member 21 and crew member 23. Team A is the first 2 people who are fully dressed and ready to go. Yep. That's it.
Well, exactly, because that's what it is, right?
Yeah.
The first ones ready are the first ones to go. So you need to be able to play every role.
I don't think every role is reasonable, but at least a few.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair point.
Yeah.
Fair
I think
point.
if you expect everyone to do everything, you never get anything done, because you just spend your whole time. I think it's more like, you're in this area, you should know these things.
Yeah.
You're in this area, you should know these things.
Certainly a BA dresser should know how to wear.
Okay.
Yeah.
At least that kind of level.
Hey guys, please take a second to listen to the message of the sponsor of today.
We are a team of very experienced trainers, focusing on providing the highest levels of bespoke onboard training in the superyacht industry, covering all of the major requirements for safer cruising. With an impressive list of satisfied clients over the years, this group provides a one-stop shop to help you increase the level of onboard safety for your yacht, your crew and your guests. Contact us. We are there for you.
Let's go, because we've been talking Fidel, so I'm circling back into the conversation, because I still don't know how you became the captain of Black Pearl. Come on.
No, so let me tell you.
Yeah.
After I got off the Endeavour replica, again, I wasn't on my brother's couch. I got off the Endeavour replica, and at this point, I'd made no money, if you recall.
That was the story of your life.
Yeah,
right? So far.
No. So I sat on. It's important though, because it was time spent in reconnaissance. It was very important. So I was sitting again on I was sitting on the couch of Mr. Jack Quigley, who was the guy who lent us his 40-foot ketch years and years earlier, and I was sitting there going, right, what am I going to do now? And his son John, who I had been on that boat with, had discovered this thing called day work. And he had alluded to this thing, day work. And he said, if you're ever in this place or this place, Fort Lauderdale, or you're on team, you can always just go to the back of any big boat and just ask for day work. And I was like, what is this thing? He's like, don't worry about it. You're just going to go there. They're going to get you clean something. It'll be fine. And I was like, great. So I put that in the back of my mind. Yeah. Anyway, so I'm sitting there in Sydney, and a friend of mine had just taken over a 110-foot 1910 schooner. I didn't have anything to do, and I didn't have any money. And he said, look, come sailing. We're in San Diego. We don't know where we're going. We work for a Swiss prince, and it should be pretty fun. I can't really pay you anything, but,
Again.
No. He goes, but it'll be great. And so I bought a plane ticket on my credit card, and Jack gave me 500 Australian dollars in plastic notes, which I put into my passport wallet. And I got on a plane to San Diego, and I bought a one-way ticket. So it's Sydney, San Diego, Sydney, LA, London, open for a year. So I got off the plane in San Diego, and I got in LA, and I flew to San Diego, and Alan Block picked me up, and he took me to this boat. And I'd arrived that night, and he goes, right, we're leaving this evening to go to Guatemala or wherever the hell we were going. And I went, great. Anyway, so I was like, who's the owner? What are we doing? What is this? And this was a pirate ship, 100% a pirate ship. No training, no safety, no nothing. This is the truth. Anyway, we went to sea. Now, that boat was not safe. No maintenance had been done, and we were a bunch of young guys sailing south. Anyway, we had a great sail. We got to Cabo. We were blue water spearfishing for tuna. We were having a great time, sailing along, and it all got a bit spirited, and we blew up the mast. Like, we destroyed the mast. Now, I'd come from a rigging background, so we hobbled into this place in Mexico, and we used a construction crane, like a proper, to pull out the mast of this boat. We laid it in a car park, a sandy car park, cut the top off, went and bought some timber, scarfed the top on, went and made new wire rigging at a crane factory in Guadalajara, right? We put the wire rigging on.
In Guadalajara,
Yeah.
you know, that's like that's just
There's
that's
no
just-
boats. There's no boats in there.
Exactly.
Yeah. Anyway, so we swaged this thing together. We put it back in the boat. We revarnished whatever. The owner, his name is Stash. He comes down to the boat. Lovely, very, very eccentric guy. At this point, I still hadn't been paid. And it had been a long slog. And he came down. He's like, "Oh, this is great. This is fantastic." And they had plans to go God knows where. And he goes, "How are you?" I said, "I'm really good, but you need to do something for me." He goes, "Oh, what can I do for you?" I said, "You're going to buy me a plane ticket." And he went, "Okay, where to?" And I was like, "Fort Lauderdale. But I want to go to the Turks and Caicos as well." And he went, "Okay, no problem." And I said, "And you need to give me $1,000 cash." And he goes, "Okay, no problem." So he bought me a plane ticket and he gave me $1,000 cash. And he's like, "Are you coming back?" And I'm like, "Not sure yet." Anyway, and so off I went. And I got on a plane. I went down to the Turks and Caicos and I sat there until I'd pretty much run out of money. And I went to Fort Lauderdale. And this is where I knew in my mind, when you run out of money, you go to Fort Lauderdale and you go and ask for day work.
That was it, right? This is the day work one.
Yeah. No, you'll like this bit. So I go to look for day work in Fort Lauderdale. And I went to the back of a white boat. Now, I've been living on a beach in the Turks and Caicos for the last 6 weeks, drinking rum, eating shellfish that I've been fishing off the reef. Like, I'd been living cheap, unshaven, long hair, not particularly good clothes. And I went to the back of but I had a commercial captain's qualification at this point. I go to the back of the first 40-metre white boat. "Hi," and someone looks at me. "Yeah. Have you got any day work?" And they just look at me. "No." I'm like, "Oh, okay, cool, thanks." I go to the back of the next boat. Same thing repeated. I'm like, "Hi, have you got any day work?" And they're like, no day work. I was like, "Oh, shit, this is shit." Go to the next boat. And I'm not feeling great about myself at this point. I was like, what have I done wrong? Anyway, I go to the back of
You actually, you had no clue.
No.
You didn't look in the mirror.
No, but I just didn't. It wasn't my world. I had
Yes, you're a sailor. You're on pirate ships. For crying out loud.
I had tens of thousands of miles sailed in all weather conditions in the Southern Ocean. I could sail. I just didn't look pretty. And I went to the back of another boat, and I did that for half a day. And I went and sat on the beach. I was like, "Oh, this is shit." I went, "Right, I'm going to go for a swim. I'm going to drink a beer, and I'll do this again tomorrow." And I did it for 3 days, and I didn't get any day work. It was quite disheartening. But I targeted a specific kind of boat, and now I realize it was maybe not the best boat for me to target. And on the 3rd day, I was like, "That's it. I'm going back to the other side on this ticket that Stash had bought me, and I'll just surf, and something will happen." And I went across the 17th Street Bridge in Fort Lauderdale, and sitting down in the berth is a beautiful 3-masted schooner named Aquarius Symbol, which is a beautiful boat who was captained by a guy called Giles Frankel. And I looked at the boat and I was like, "Oh, I know someone who works on that boat." And an old chief officer from the Endeavour had become chief officer on that boat. And I went down there and I looked at that and I was like, "There's no way anyone's giving me a job on there. I've just been told by all these 40-metre boats that I'm not suitable. I'm definitely not suitable for that." But I went down there anyway and I knocked on the hull. And this guy comes out, Steve, who's a genuine guy. Steve Pretorius, fantastic guy. He comes out and he looks at me. "Can I help you?" Beautiful guy. And I said, "Yes, yeah, you can. Can I speak to Gavin Reed, please?" And he goes, "Oh, I'm really sorry, Gavin doesn't work here. I've taken over from him." And I was like, oh, shit. He goes, "Oh, well, why do you want to speak to Gavin?" He goes, "I've just been looking for day work for 3 days and I'm pretty dispirited and I was hoping to have a beer with a friend." And he goes, "Come back at 5 o'clock. So off I went. At 5 o'clock I came back and the crew was out there and they welcomed me on board and we had a bit of a conversation. "How do you know Gavin?" "I worked on the Endeavour. I did this." "Oh, really?" And we had a chat. They gave me a beer and then they go, "Oh, you want the bosun's job on board?"
Really?
But I didn't take the bosun's job. I said, I don't know if I want the bosun's job, but I'd like some day work. Anyway, and they gave me day work. I worked with them in Fort Lauderdale for, I think, 6 weeks. I may have that incorrect. And then I did my first Atlantic crossing on a yacht with them. And I left and I went and did something else because I had something else lined up if I didn't succeed in Fort Lauderdale. But the relationship that I made on there, when I was ready to get on a yacht, I contacted those guys and they put me on Mariette, which is a beautiful 42-metre schooner owned by Mr. Tom Perkins, who's the guy that built the Maltese Falcon, and I worked for 13 years. And that's where I met Chris Gartner, the other captain on the Black Pearl. So I flew to Mariette, and based on that relationship with those guys, and I worked on Mariette for over a year. And did the classic regattas, and learned how to cut my hair, and learned how to shave, and learned all those other skills that you don't realize you don't know. And that led me from that boat to another boat, to another boat, to Maltese Falcon for the build, and that led me along that pathway to that boat.
What a good story.
Yeah.
It's not only a good story, you're also very good at telling it. And guys, it is one. We didn't have any beers yet. We're very chilled. CT has to go back to his boat soon. That is such a good story. Thank you so much for sharing that. I think people are going to love this story. How did you get in touch with this guy, with that man next to you?
I had the pleasure of working on some of the build of Black Pearl, although I didn't do a huge amount. I came in when they were writing documents and SMS and SOPs and getting safety gear and all that sort of thing. And we wanted to, and we're putting in place safety protocols. De Gamma was brought in to assist with the training and supply of safety equipment, and to do initial fire training, so to assess the vessel and to look at the best ways to go forward with the team that was in hand, and get that set out in a safe, professional way.
Fantastic. Steve, thank you so much for sponsoring this episode, and thank you so much for bringing CT down. Anything that you would like to share with our audience? Anything that you find of importance?
No, absolutely. I mean, it's brilliant to hear all these stories. It's great to hear the background side of it as well. Know from a career path, how do you get from there to there? And it's amazing to listen to. And I know there are thousands of crew out there who've each got their own independent story. They're all going to have their experiences from it. From our side of it, we're here. We wanted to sponsor this and do this because we're really interested. We've worked with the Black Pearl, as Christian said, right from the start.
No, it's like eight years.
Yeah, we came in at the early stages, which if any boat has ever got that opportunity, hopefully what they'll admit is that there's the benefit of, we're not going on board to say you must do it like this. We're going on board to look at it from an independent point of view. The teams that we will utilize and use, be it through our company or through the rest of the Superyacht Training Group, they are specialists in their area. Be it helicopters, medical, first aid, working aloft, find space, crew guest safety videos, interior, the works, all of those, they are the pros at what they do. The benefit by coming onto a build at the early stage, or even in an operational refit, is that you're bringing somebody else in to come and have a look at it. And it's to put forward ideas. We're not there to say, you're doing it wrong, it's got to be like this. We'll look at it from the manufacturer's point of view, from the equipment. We'll look at it for how we can enhance. So ultimately you end up with a crew who think outside the box. They go that different way. They're meeting the minimum standard, but at the same time, they're going to be at a safer level than everybody else, and that's what we're all about for this side of it, certainly from our part anyway.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Can I blow his trumpet for 1 second?
Please do.
Yes.
I was going to say something. I think one thing we touched on earlier before you started filming was about, we're talking about training, we're talking about ideas. I think one thing that I said before was, when you're on a boat, when you're on a yacht, you've got a small number of crew to do a lot of different jobs. People have got to wear a lot of different hats. And we do our best. There's great crews out there. There are great boats with amazing safety cultures. I think all of us can do better. Sometimes we don't have enough time to bring in someone to look at what you're doing. If your boss is happy to do that, if you bring in someone to look at what you're doing, and even if they just give you a few pointers to help sharpen things up, that is of great benefit in all areas, in firefighting or in nursing or in medical, in navigation or whatever it is, in the rigging side or whatever, to have that independent third party who comes in and goes, yeah, you guys are doing a great job, but I noticed that this or this or this, it opens the conversation. And sometimes, we're talking about AI before, sometimes when you get that independent input, there are some things that you didn't even realize that you hadn't thought about.
Exactly.
And when you get that third party in, it's not about saying, oh, I can't do this, I need someone to do it for me. It's going, hey, we're doing a lot of things and we're going to try and make each of those things 10% better. How do we make them 10% better? Let's bring in someone who does that every day, and let's see what they say about what we do, and be willing to change if you need to.
I think these are the perfect final words of this podcast. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you so much for popping over. And, well, episode 3 of Crew Chronicles, and my God, have there been 3 amazing episodes. I'm already looking forward to number 4.
I'll say one thing?
Yes, of course you can.
If a day worker comes to your boat and they're not that tidy, you can tell them to go and have a shave, be back 7 o'clock the next morning, and ask again.
And let's see if you see a different person.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. This is so good. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed this. Beautiful spot here in Antigua. Great conversation. Thank you again.
Thank you.